Did you know that traditional financial advice is destructive to business owners and could make you the lowest paid employee in your company? Join financial expert Chris Miles as he guides entrepreneurs on a high stakes journey where leveraging financing becomes the key to unlocking business growth and monetary stability.
Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. If you missed my last episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my social media pages as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Chris Miles, the cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor, is a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to get their money working for them today. He's an author, podcast host of the Money Ripples podcast, has been featured in U.S. News, CNN Money, Entrepreneurs on Fire, Bigger Pockets, and has a proven reputation with his company, Money Ripples, getting his clients fast financial results. In fact, his personal clients have increased their cash flow by 300 plus million in the last 13 years. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, Candy.
Well, this is going to be another fabulous topic. Of course, me being in finance, I think cash flow is really important to understand as well. And of course, financial, all of that encompasses it is important. But before I get into questions I have for you, I'd love for you to just share your story about how you began helping entrepreneurs to manage their cash flow.
Yeah, pretty simple. By not intending to do it in the first place, right? Life kind of naturally takes you different directions. When I was raised as a kid, I had great, hardworking, middle-class parents, taught me good values. Your word is your bond. Basically, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Work hard, follow your passions, those kind of things, right? But I realized the one thing they didn't really understand a lot about was money. Even though my mom, she was an entrepreneur herself, being kind of the starving artist, as she would proclaim, right? Even though she was, still cash was always tight. And even for my dad, who worked that supposed to be stable W-2 job that he would get laid off from time to time, that was still scarce. And so money was always a scarce subject. There was never enough. We can't afford this. What do you think I am? Made of money? I'm not made of money, those kind of quotes that you'd hear all the time growing up. And so I vowed I never want to be like my parents that way. I wanted to have a more abundant life. So I went to college. And then going to college, my plan was to become a business consultant. But I figured if I'm going to do that, rather than just try to get my degree, maybe I should have real life business experience. So I took a sabbatical from college. I was going to take a year off, find some business to do, get some experience, then go back and get my MBA. Well, the first business I found was actually becoming a financial advisor, not knowing they take anybody off the street as long as you don't have a criminal record and you could pass a test with 70%. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I ended up loving being an entrepreneur so much, I stayed dropped out of college, never went back, never went down that route. And I was heading down that entrepreneur, living on hopium type of a path, But of course, as after several years went by, then all of a sudden my dad reaches out to me and says, "Hey, when are you going to become my financial advisor?" And I never thought he would ever want to meet with me because he changed my diapers. So why would this guy want to talk with me? Well, he was getting desperate. He said, "Hey, I'm 61 years old. I want to retire soon. What do I need to do?" And so for the first time in my entire life, because he was like the ultra saver, penny pinching saver, never wanted to spend money at all. He was the cheap son of a gun. And he never even wanted to let us know his money. And so now I'm seeing his money for the first time. And after I look at it, I said, "Dad, if you want to retire right now, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's how long it'll be before you run out of money." "Okay, Chris, that's not what I want to hear. What else can I do?" And I said, "I don't know, because you did, quote unquote, everything right. You save everything." He paid off his debt early. He was totally debt free, including his house. He had assets, but he didn't really have enough to really create enough of, a living for longer than about 5 years or so. And that bugged me a lot because he was kind of my inspiration for going in the first place. I was hoping that if
Mhm.
I learned enough about money, not only would it help me, but maybe I can give him some of his life back instead of thinking that work will literally kill him.
Mhm.
Well, now I'm seeing that work might have to literally kill him for him to retire. And so, of course, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. I call up one of my friends who I trained to be a financial advisor, but then he went to leave to go do real estate investing. As I'm talking with him, he starts telling me about how his life is amazing. He's like, man, he's like, my dad and I have partnered on some real estate deals. We've doubled my dad's income as a professor at the local university. And I said, oh, come on, that's too good to be true. You've only been doing this for 5 months. No way that's possible. And he finally stopped me. He said, Chris, how many of your clients are really financially free where they don't worry about money? None. They all worry about money. Says, well, there you go. Okay, how about this, Chris? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions, but actually doing these investments? Because if anybody has it figured out, shouldn't it be you?
Mhm.
And as I thought about it, and there's over 100 guys in our office, I realized, nope, none of us are. In fact, there's guys who've been working since the late 1970s and they still can't retire.
Mm.
And that's when the shoe really dropped for me. And I had to make a choice. Either I stay on my path and just keep going down my career because that's what I, was trained to do. And that's what I was at the height of my practice. Why quit when I invested so many years into it? Or do I keep my integrity intact and leave? So I chose the latter. I said, I can't teach anything. I don't do myself. I really just
Mhm.
can't do it. So I was out. And that's kind of started me on a journey a little bit where I wanted to know what he knew. I wanted to try to find out how you could actually get quote unquote out of the rat race, as Robert Kiyosaki calls it in Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mhm.
Well, I did it later that year, 28, almost 29 years old. I was able to be at the point where I was work optional. I could keep working or I could quit. I could retire essentially. And that blew my mind. It was so easy to do. Even though it's not commonly taught, it's actually not hard to accomplish with the right conditions and doing the right things.
Mhm.
And so finally in 2007, I came out of retirement to teach people how to do that, focus on real estate investors. And then the recession hit and they went broke
Mm.
and we about went broke. We almost went bankrupt during that period of time, came back out of it. I launched Money Ripples 11 years ago now. And now I've been teaching a lot of entrepreneurs, especially how to increase their cash flow, how to get out of the rat race, become work optional, even their own businesses. So they work because they want to, not because they have to. And I even was able to retire the second time in 2000, at the end of 2016.
Nice. Well, there's a lot that was in that story, but I guess I know why you're now called the anti-financial advisor and why you want to really focus on, cash flow. And I think it's
Mhm.
important because a lot of people do take information that they're provided and you should go to, a retirement plan and you should put your money in here and, save for your future and start early so you capture, all of that compound interest. So it sounds like that's good advice. And yet you're saying here a lot of people are putting money away and they're not going to have enough to live. So, like, what would you tell someone then who's thinking, like, I'm following what I've been told, I think I'm doing the right thing. How do I know if I'm going to have enough money for retirement?
Look at those that have been doing it before you. I think that's the first thing. That's what I had to look at was the evidence, right? If you really look at it, I mean, right now, Fidelity, right? They have the largest 401k clientele that's out there. They have 45 million Americans using their 401k plan. That's a lot. Of those 45 million, only 750,000 have at least $1 million. Some of them are business owners, of course, right? But even of those that 1.5%, right? That's really 1.5% that's successful at retirement age to have at least $1 million. But even they will tell you they're not successful because
Mhm.
of those 1.5%, over 35% of them think it'll take a miracle for them to be able to retire because $1 million just isn't enough. As evidenced by one of my clients, he was out in California. He was working for the military. He happened to save up $1 million in his retirement plan, and when he retired, his financial advisor said, "Well, great. Now you can live on 30,000 a year,
Mm.
3%. That's the rule. 4% rule,
Right.
it's gone. It's been debunked so long ago. So 3% is what this guy said. 3%, and you're a millionaire living below the poverty line."
Mhm.
And he said, "That's enough. I can't do this. There's no way." And that's why when he hired us, as we found different things in real estate like duplexes, and we did some things with oil and gas, with getting paid the rent on the land and things like that, and even getting into apartments and whatnot. He went from 30,000 a year to 130,000 a year and not even have to touch his $1 million, right?
Mm,
So it's that
nice.
difference of cash flow and passive income versus just, sitting on your money, right? And
Hmm.
if you're a business owner listening to this right now, you kind of already know something doesn't smell right, because I remember when I was a financial advisor, I sat down with my brother-in-law, and I understand that my brother-in-law, he came from a family where his dad was first generation millionaire, like multi-millionaire. He had a bunch of car dealerships. He sold a bunch of them off to the guy that used to own the Utah Jazz, the basketball
Mm,
team. And so they sold off and they were set for life. And I knew as a financial advisor, if I can get in with that family, I'll be set for life, because financial advisors don't make money when you do. They only make money when you put money with them, right? So they just
right.
get paid a percentage of whatever's under management. So my goal was to really try to get there. So after probably about 3 years in that industry, I felt confident enough that I probably knew more than multimillionaires, especially when it came to money and investing. So I sat down with my brother-in-law, and I had the perfect presentation I spent hours on. I made sure my suit was pressed nicely. I brought the best guy from my office to back me up, just in case I wasn't good enough. And we were giving this presentation. And after I'm done, my brother-in-law says, "Well, great job, Chris. Well, let me ask you this. Let's just say I give you $10,000 to play with today. You're saying you can make me 12% in a year, right?" And I said, "Well, I can't promise any returns, of course, but history's shown it's like 12%. So you could, yeah." "Okay, Chris, that's 1,200 bucks a year. But Chris, I can take that same 10 grand. I can go put a down payment on a semi truck, turn around, sell it a few months later, and make a $20,000 profit.
Mm,
So why would I invest my money with you?" And then I said the very thing that almost every financial advisor would say, that they've been trained to say to you your entire life, which is, well, you should be diversified. You shouldn't put all your eggs in that one basket. "Okay, Chris, thanks for your time. See you later." And that was that, right? Because let's be honest, as a business owner, if we and just so you know, the stock market doesn't actually do 12%. That was a lie. In truth, it really only does like 7.75% for the last 30 years. That's the
mhm.
average S&P. And mutual funds, almost every one of them, do worse than the S&P. So you're lucky to
Mm.
make 7% a year. If you were to invest 10 grand in your business right now, wouldn't you hope you make at least 700 bucks in a year?
I mean,
I mean,
definitely when you're investing in your business and you're growing lines of credit, or or different like sources of income and products and
yeah.
services, yes, you want to have.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you put it into marketing. If it only made you 700 bucks in a year, you would call that a failed marketing test. You would go to the next thing, right? You would do
Hmm.
something else. And I think business owners get this more than anybody, because business owners are one, I mean, you're kind of taught to go against the grain a little bit. You don't like the status quo. That's why you don't have the typical 9 to 5 job. Although
Hmm.
you might be trapped in your business working 9 to 9. I don't know, but hopefully not. but you want to do something different. I mean, I became an entrepreneur because I saw very quickly in college that people that were going to work for a company, they were told how much they can make. They were told when they should take off time and when they can't take off time. I mean, they were told what to do in every aspect. I wanted control of that time and that freedom, which is why I
Hmm.
became an entrepreneur. Well, same thing with money. Why lock it up in a place that makes crappy returns when you know you could do much better? And that's why a lot of business owners, really, your number one investment should be your business, first and
Hmm.
foremost. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't diversify. I'm not saying you can't go invest in other things, but the stock market, that's not the answer. Why invest in somebody else's stock where you have no other control, when you could be putting that money into your own company where you have control?
Hmm. But then someone might be saying, well, what about the times when we have those periods like the real estate, like you talked about too, where it tanked, right? And what if someone's
Mhm.
business is in one of those industries that things just fall apart and now we lose a business or almost lose a business? So isn't it better then, to diversify and have things, So I know people are probably wondering kind of about that. How do you protect yourself though to make sure that you still have the cash you need for your business and to grow the wealth that you have and it's not locked up, but at the same time have something to fall back on if things don't go the way you hope?
Yeah, so there are different phases of business, right? I mean, you have that launch phase where you're just trying to get going and you are sinking time, energy, and money into that business. And that's perfectly okay. And that's the time and season for it. The trap that a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with that they get into, they'll say the same thing, right? They're like, yeah, on the outside, I might look successful. I make great money. All my neighbors and my friends think I'm doing great. But in truth, I know I'm stuck here. Like I have to keep
Mm,
working this business. Even with employees, I'm
mhm,
still trapped in this business. When is it going to end? When is it going to stop? or even if they love the business, and most of the businesses that I talk to do love their business to some level, they're like, yeah, but I just want the freedom that I could step away if I had to, and
Right.
even if I didn't sell the business, because most businesses aren't saleable anyways unless you follow the right advice, right? If you have a system, great, you have a business, but if not, you might not be able to sell it at all. And so
Mhm.
many people want that option to be able to walk away, even if they want to stay in it. They just want the freedom to have options.
Mhm.
And that's true. So when you start to mature in your business, you'll realize that at some point you could try to throw more money in the business, but there's a diminishing return that starts happening. Like where you realize I'm just throwing more money in, but it's not necessarily giving me a higher ROI. Maybe I should do less money, get the best ROI I can. What do I do with the rest of this money? Do I let it sit in savings in my business for someday? Do I
Mhm.
buy a building? Do I, buy another business? What do I do with that money? And that's where you should diversify. You should,
Mhm.
but don't diversify in places where you're never diversified. For example, the stock market is not diversified. Even a mutual fund is not diversified. It's all one type of asset. It's a paper asset, and it's specifically in stocks. And even if
Mhm.
somebody gets bonds, I just saw an article on it this morning. Bonds have been horrible. People have lost money in bonds and stocks. It didn't matter where you put your money with a financial advisor. You lost money over the last year and a half or two.
Mhm.
That's not cool, right? So you want to be a place where you have more control, more ownership, just like you do as an entrepreneur. That's why real estate can be good, not the buy your neighbor's house type of real estate investing where you're buying your own town, things like that. Don't do that. Like for example, I live in the western half of the United States. Everything in the western half of the United States stinks for real estate. I hate it. So what do? I buy in like the Midwest or the Southeast in certain markets that aren't hot markets. They're really boring markets, but they make good profit and cash flow. And
Mhm.
here's the cool thing is that here's what you don't want to do as a business owner. You don't want to become this active real estate investor. You know how the people on TikTok and Instagram always say, create passive income, start
Mhm.
wholesaling or flipping properties. There is nothing passive about those strategies. They are very much another business. And if you have a great cash flowing business already, a profitable business, and then you get distracted and you start taking your money somewhere else, you can easily start losing money in that business and not make any money in real estate, right?
Mhm.
The best way to do it is to do it passively. And so when I buy a property, I find properties that are found by somebody else. So it's found by usually what's called a turnkey real estate company. They find the property, they help me get the financing, they property manage it for me, and I'm hands off. I just buy it
Mhm.
and then I collect the profits off of that property. And so it's very hands off. Now, if you have a crappy property manager, now you're going to have some issues, right? And I've had that before happen too. But the vast majority of the time, usually you have good property managers that take care of it. And you start to wonder, wait a minute, I'm still getting paid, right? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. This is wonderful. So that's
Mhm.
one strategy, but that's not the only one. Even if somebody didn't want to do that, you could still be a lender. You can still lend your money and ask for a contractual rate of return. You could ask to say, listen, I'm going to lend my money to you, this real estate investor, for example. I'll lend my money to you for 15% or 10% or 12 or whatever it might be. Usually you figure out the terms and then they pay you that contractual amount like you're the bank. So you could become literally like the bank with your cash, get it to work harder
Mhm.
for you when you do nothing for it. You could even get, co-ownership in properties or other types of things. It could be not just like simple rental properties. It could be an apartment building. It could be self-storage units, which are more recession resistant. You could do
Mhm.
something like that because when people downsize, guess where they put their crap? Into your self-storage units, right?
Right.
So that's one way to profit when people start getting cheap. You know, you
Mhm.
could also, I mean, even oil and gas. I mentioned that. I mean, I have an investment where we get paid for the land because the oil companies lease the land because they don't want to own it; they just want to rent it. They lease the land, pay you for that, and then they also pay you royalties on top of it from the drilling they do. And not just
Mhm.
oil, because they're not killing the environment and everything else. They're actually getting natural gas, which is a green energy, right? And they're getting that too. And so I'm getting paid on that. I even have a partnership that I have where they buy and sell raw land and they sell it to people and then they pay us back like we're the bank over 5 or 10 years. And if they
Mhm.
default, great. We foreclose on them and go get another payment from the next people. And we make money off of that. So there's a lot of ways to make money off that. I even have clients that sometimes say that they want to pool their money with other investors to buy a franchise like a car wash, and do something
Mhm.
with that where they get some cash flow from it. There's land involved too, so there's some security because it's a real asset and it's a real business. Notice everything I mentioned here are real. They're tangible. The things you can actually touch. I don't want to say taste and feel. You're not going to lick it, but you can touch and feel it at least, right?
Mhm.
They're real assets. They're not like an arbitrary fake company like Nvidia, the company that boomed because of AI. but they have no real valuation. Same thing with Tesla. Tesla, I mean, that thing is like 100 times, it's trading at 100 times more than its actual value, right? I mean, imagine if your company's only worth $1 million, but it's all of a sudden people in the stock market say it's worth 100 million. That's Tesla right now. That's a ripoff, like those kind of things. You have zero control. You don't even know if you're going to have money. We saw that happen even when I first became a financial advisor. Y2K, you remember that time period? You remember companies like Enron? I remember talking to an Enron employee, or really at that point, recently laid off Enron employee who had a couple million in his retirement account with them, thinking he was safe, only to find out that he was flat broke and laid off, at that time. So you just never know. Like, that stuff is, to me, high risk gambling, no control. When I can actually have real assets that pay me money and can give me other streams of income outside of my own active business, that allows me to have these multiple streams of income coming in that people talk about all the time.
Right. Well, and having these investments, I think, is great too, to have that cash flow. But let's also shift to actual in the business too, and improving the cash flow in there as well, as just specifically for that too. So first of all, a lot of people wonder about debt, right? There's sometimes people say good debt and bad debt. And so a business owner may be saying, should I have debt in my business? So could you answer that question? Should they have lines of credit? Should they use credit cards? What do you think?
Yeah, because if you ask Dave Ramsey, he say never ever get debt, right? That's bad. That's evil. That's stupid. That's dumb. Debt's dumb. Cash is real. You can do that. And I would say this, that there's much more. The real reality is, who are you as a steward of that money, right? How good of a business owner are you? Because for some people, having debt is a bad idea, because maybe they're speculators, maybe they're more gamblers in their business. Maybe this is their third business that they're trying to launch now, and maybe it's the third one at the same time as the other two. You get entrepreneurs that are out there trying to do that. If you're in that phase, you're in that startup or experimental phase of your business, bootstrap everything, right? Don't you dare take on any debt. But for those of us that know that we can be very formulaic, we can be very calculated with our risk, and we know what kind of risk we can take, debt can be a great tool, can be a great option. And I've done it both ways. I've only bootstrapping. I've done it with debt as well, or at least assistance of debt with some bootstrapping, but I'll tell you, it really just depends on who you are. So rule number one is, don't fear debt, but do respect it. Respect that it could either help you or hurt you, depending on what it is. I remember my first real experience with debt in a business was when I got my first SBA loan, right? And that SBA loan, I remember it was like 6.25% or something like that. But that $25,000 that I took out, the payment was like $130 a month. Now, if you're a business owner with 25 grand and you can't make $130 a month, you should not be a business owner. That's my opinion, right? Because that should be easy for you to be able to accomplish, but not everybody can. And so for me, that was smart money, right? Because I had better terms. Now, if I would have got the same 25 grand and then they would have required of me $2,000 a month, very different story, isn't it? Because now you have to figure out, how do I make the profit? How do I make enough for that income to make it worthwhile? And, a lot of times you get those, I get it all the time. I don't know if you do too, but like PayPal sends me something saying, hey, we'll send you like $100,000, of capital. Oh, but you got to pay it back in 12 months, or whatever it might be. And that's fine. But there's very few things I can do in my business where I know, oh, yes, I will at least 2x it to more than make those payments with the interest and everything else in the next 12 months. Very few things, even marketing strategies, you never know. So if you're going to use debt, just make sure you're using it wisely and use it for things that you can create returns with. I'll give you another example of a client. Like, they were a chiropractor. They got $25,000 available to them, and we were talking about options. And one of those options was actually buying a new piece of equipment for their office. I said, great. Well, what would that do to your revenue? They said, well, I'll add another $2,000 a month. I said, that's $2,000 a month to that 25 grand. Well, here's what I'll tell you. You can put 25,000 on a real estate property, and yeah, you might make a couple $100 a month. But if you can make 10 times that, buy that piece of equipment. Do that. I had another client. They were literally broke. I mean, they were at the point where the only money they had left was $1,000 of available credit left on their credit card. That was it. And so I asked them, I said, when was the last time you did an open house? They said, oh, it's been years since we did one. I said, you know what? Christmas is coming. Why don't you do an open house? but invite other members of your community in there. Like maybe you bring a massage therapist to come, advertise well, maybe a dentist or somebody. Like bring a few other people, invite freaking Santa Claus. Okay. Do whatever it is, like have a nice little Christmas type party. Use that $1,000 to pretty much buy the food or whatever you need, the hors d'oeuvres that you need for that party, and have a new open house and advertise. I asked him, I said, if you got one new patient in your practice, what would that equal to you? He's like, well, that's usually about a $3,000 total benefit that year. I said, $3,000, and you can spend $1,000, even if you got one patient, you would triple your money. Yeah, but use your credit card, but there's interest. Yeah, like what? Even if you didn't pay anything on it, which they'll make you do anyways, even if it was 20% interest, that's only $200, $1,200 total for 3,000. Do it. And so he did. And when he reported back to me the following month, he says, yeah, we did it. I said, great. How many new patients? He said, 5. I said, awesome. You now just 15x your credit card return on that debt, right? So that makes sense. But in other situations, you just got to make sure you're being calculated with it.
Right. Well, and I tell people as well, like if you have those cards that give you cash back, right? So put what you can on the credit card, pay it off every month. If you can, you'll get that extra cash and then apply it to your statement, right? So now you just got free money that reduces what you owe. And so that's a smart way to use what you have in the company or personally, because you can have it personally too, to make the money work for you. And just like you've said too, if you can buy a piece of equipment and it helps you get even more revenue, right? You have a return on that investment. And so it's smart. So I don't
agree.
think debt is always bad. I think consumer debt, and if you're using a credit card because I want a TV or I want to buy this and I just don't have cash today, that is not wise. Right?
That's right.
But I agree with you on how to use it effectively to grow your business and make it worthwhile. So I think that might make someone think twice, like before they thought, oh, debt is really bad. And so here they're struggling, right? And don't have what they need in their business. So what would you say to someone too who maybe is struggling? They've had some financial issues. They don't have the cash flow they need. Maybe their credit isn't that great. What are some of the things they could do to improve the position that they're in now to bring in that cash flow?
Yeah, just understand I've been there. I actually saw a Facebook memory from, I believe it was 2000, let's see, it would be 13 years. So it was 2010. So already I was starting to try to rebuild my credit in 2010. So it was worse than this, but my credit score was 510. I mean, you could pretty much, that's like a bad SAT score when you get your name right on the test, right? I mean, that's how bad it was. And now it's over 800. And I remember just thinking about that because back then, like I was getting hit hard by the recession, right? Our business was failing because we were in the wrong market. I'd run up expenses in business and personal life. And so I was in the hole 15,000 a month. So I'll tell you the same thing that I had to learn too, to get out of that hole, that nightmare when by the way, friends stopped calling, but collectors would never stop calling, that kind of time period. The best thing I would do is focus on one key principle that's made me money ever since I learned about real estate investing. And it's helped me never really want for money long-term ever again. And that's dollars follow value. Dollars follow the value you create for other people. Stop asking, how do I make more money? Because people have asked that for generations and there's many of them still broke, right? If instead of asking about how do I make more money and instead go to the root cause of what creates money, it's serving people, solving problems, or adding value in a way that they want to exchange money to have that in their life. Or in other words, you make their life better, right? Figure out a way to how to make somebody's life better, you'll get paid. That's really where the secret comes down to. So if you're starting from 0 or even like I was negative 1 million and you have to dig back out of that hole, that's where you start. You start right there. I'll give you a little bit more context into my story there. I remember I was in the hole, like I said, over $1 million. And I felt not only did I feel helpless and hopeless, but I also, unemployed in Greenland. No, sorry, I just had Princess Bride show in my head. It's like helpless, hopeless. Anyways, going back from the inconceivable guy, I remember really feeling like I was a fraud because I was the guy who was supposed to have it all figured out with money, helping people get out of the rat race, and now I'm back in it. So I stopped teaching people how to get out of the rat race because, like I said before, I can't teach something I don't do. So I instead started teaching people how to find money, right? How do we find it? Is it paying off certain debts while keeping others, and freeing up cash flow there? Is it saving money on taxes, which by the way, almost every entrepreneur overpays at least $5,000, $10,000 a year in taxes. We got that. Can we help them just start tracking money? Sometimes just doing that helps people find an extra 500 to 1,000 a month. Just doing that, just helping people find money. And before long, we started seeing that the average client was finding about 34,000 in the first year alone. That's kind of what adds that 3 million over the last 13 years, right? Sorry, 300 million, not 3 million, 300 million. Well, anyways, so as I was starting to do that and help people do it, now the whole reason I did it is because, one, I couldn't teach them how to get out of a rat race, but two, what they were asking for at the time, the problem everybody was saying is, I wish I could pay you, but I can't find the money. And in the back of my mind, because I wouldn't say it out loud because that would be business suicide, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm more broke than this person is. I bet you I would be grateful to have their financial situation. I bet you I could find the money. And so I would tell them, I said, listen, if I can help you find the money to pay me, would you then pay me? They said, yes. And that's how it got started. And eventually it just led to literally serving hundreds, if not thousands of people, just be able to do that very thing, is finding and freeing up cash. Even before we talked about passive income, I didn't even bring that up until I was, once again, in the situation where I was starting to create passive income for myself. Then I started teaching about that too. But seriously, with entrepreneurs, we were just solely just helping them find money that they didn't know that was even available to them. So that's the key, is find ways you can serve people, solve problems for them, even in this current environment. And by the way, in today's environment, everybody's got problems. Everybody's complaining about something. Find something that you can uniquely show up and serve with your talent and with your gifts and with your business, especially if you can do it that way, and then do it. And you'll never have a money problem.
Nice. Well, this has been great information, and I know you probably have so much more that you could share. So I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to extend to our listeners, and if they have additional questions, want to touch base with you, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, one thing you can do is you can actually find our ebook, Beyond Rice and Beans, 7 Secrets to Free Up Cash Today, on our website, moneyripples.com. That's a free ebook. And by the way, it's about a half-hour read if you're a slow reader like I am. I'm not a good writer. So it's 28 pages because I added page breaks to it. You're welcome. So fast lunch read. You can also check out our podcast, Money Ripples podcast, that we have on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you look for podcasts.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Chris, so much for being a guest on my show, talking about this today. I know sometimes money can be a topic people are afraid to even talk about themselves too. They're embarrassed maybe to say that they're having struggles. And so for you even to admit, like, I've been there, I was $1 million in debt, now here I am, I know listeners really appreciate your transparency. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. I hope you found this topic interesting and enjoyed the informative discussion. Would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform? I'd really appreciate your support. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to my guest at any of the links that they shared, or you could send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle the financial aspects of your business, ABP is here to help. Contact us today to discuss your needs at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.